He told me, hey, what you're solving is something we were looking for. Could you give us a demo of your platform? Just show us what you can do. I was like, of course. So I onboarded him in 2 days. So those two legacy players, it took them 4 weeks to put his data on their platform. So when he saw what we could do, he immediately told me, hey, we want to work with you. So we gave him a great deal. And then we've been working together since.
Joining me today is Barkin Doganay, founder of Reven AI. Barkin, thank you so much. Tell us about yourself, what Reven AI does, and then we'll jump straight into how you got your first paying client.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm Barkin. So I came to the US in 2011 for college. I'm originally from Turkey. I went to Yale. I studied electrical engineering, computer science, and economics. I worked at Goldman Sachs and Suisse during my junior year in college and then afterwards for a year and a half in investment banking. And then I've been in startups for a decade. I worked in alternative data for 5 years as a product leader and then wanted to start my own company. So I applied to MBA programs. I got into MIT because of the entrepreneurship focus, and I really wanted to find a co-founder and start a company. In December 2022, I started my first company, which was Kintsugi AI. It was one of the fastest growing sales tax automation startups in the Bay Area. In 18 months, we went from 3 founders to more than 100 people. We raised $28 million, and our largest investor was Vertex, which is a public company in sales tax automation. And I wanted to do something broader. So in 2025, I started thinking about how I could build a more comprehensive platform because I thought that sales tax shouldn't be solved on its own. All of these financial modules are interconnected. So I wanted to handle bookkeeping, accounting, multi-entity problems, reporting, etc. So tackling, what QuickBooks does, all of the sales tax automation platform to do, as well as the largest ERP platforms. So that's how I started Reven. I found my 2 co-founders who are my co-founders right now, and we incorporated beginning of 2026. And yeah, we've moved very quickly. We're 11 people and scaling pretty quick.
So jumping right in, how and where did you get your first paying client?
Yeah, so for Reven AI, the first customer I got was one of my good friends from college. He is a founder as well. So he was looking for bookkeeping and accounting solutions, and he talked to 2 of the biggest players in the space. And by chance, I was connecting with him as I was starting out, and he told me, hey, what you're solving is something we were looking for. Could you give us a demo of your platform? Just show us what you can do. I was like, of course. So I onboarded him in 2 days. So those 2 legacy players, it took them 4 weeks to put his data on their platform. So when he saw what we could do, he immediately told me, hey, we want to work with you. So we gave him a great deal, and then we've been working together since.
What was going through your mind when you spoke with him? Did you expect that was going to be the conversation, or did you have another expectation?
No, yeah, I didn't. So I was just talking with my founder friends because, as you probably know, like as a founder, your journey is so insular that you always want to pick the brain of your friends, whoever is doing a startup. Maybe they're more advanced. And I'm a second time founder. So I really wanted to just talk to the people in the space who are more experienced. And I didn't have any expectations. And the product approach we have is actually pretty unique, where we give the monitoring for free. So we do the onboarding and the monitoring of all of your compliance tasks for free. And only when we execute a task is when we charge a customer. So think of TurboTax, right? Like when you onboard on TurboTax as a consumer, they break down, they take your W-2, they break out your state tax, federal tax, and they don't charge you until you execute. So we actually file to those jurisdictions. So we have a similar approach for enterprises. And because we give immediate value to our customers, the sales cycle becomes easier for us. And that was very helpful.
You provide immediate value. That's very helpful to reduce the friction to get your first client. Why do you think they chose you over anyone else?
It's twofold. So number one is if you can serve your customer immediately, that is a huge, because they can see your platform and your team can provide value immediately before they trust you with their most sensitive data. So if you think about compliance accounting, these things are very, very sensitive. So you have to establish trust in the beginning. And then the second part is because I'm a second time founder, I know how to build that type of product. And what separates us is we can build any feature, fix anything, build a bug, and deliver anything in a day or less, right? Very few startups can do that. But if you really know your space and what you're tackling, that iteration speed really separates you from the competition. And I would only recommend that for people who really know, the space they're tackling. Because if you overpromise, you can also lose your customer. But because I was a second time founder, like I knew what to build, I knew how to deliver it. And we were just able to iterate, in an hour or two. So we could fix anything, deliver anything. And that really made them very comfortable where like, okay, this team can really overperform and I don't have to worry about any of this stuff. Whatever I need, they'll deliver in hours or 1 day max. So that's what convinced them to just join us.
How many conversations did you have before your first yes?
So that was my, I think, third conversation. So two of my previous customers I talked to, but they didn't need the solution. And then this was my third one. Also, the timing matters a lot, right? So your customers might have that problem at a specific time. Depending on whichever problem you're solving, your customer might have that problem that's very acute at a certain point in time, or they might be like, "Yeah, I already have a solution. It kind of works. So I'm not going to worry about it." And then months or a year down the line, they might come back to you because that solution doesn't solve their problem anymore. So the timing matters a lot too. Like if you think about your customers, what's the problem you're solving and what is the, let's say, ranking of that pain point for your customer's roadmap, right? So if they're trying to just sell more and if they're really worried about making payroll or whatever, like I don't care about compliance or accounting at this point. It's not a big problem right now. So I'm just going to let it go for a bit. Whatever I have is what I'm going to have. But then let's say they get audited or they get a letter from a state or jurisdiction, then it becomes a real problem. They might panic because, wow, this is a real danger to my business. So some of that is luck. As long as you have the best product though, and you know your space and you have a big outreach, you'll get customers, but you really need to know your space and the timing so that whenever they come to you, you're able to serve them at a moment's notice, which is pretty difficult unless you know the space.
When the first client had worked out, is there anything in that process that almost caused the deal to fail?
We were able to execute very fast, but I don't think any other startup could have done it. So basically, if your customer already almost signed with someone, it's a race against the clock. So unless you can perform almost on the spot, you're going to lose them because they already have a contract that they signed or about to sign. So in order to beat that, you really got to step up at a moment's notice. So the speed of execution and integration process that was way more efficient than anybody else. That was really the tiebreaker that really helped us. But that could be dangerous because you don't want to skip steps. You want to make sure that you cover everything as you're going for that speed. So it's a very delicate process as you're serving a customer.
If someone watching had 0 customers and they needed one in 30 days, what would you tell them to do?
Depends on their background. If they're a first-time founder, they should really think about big pain points that not a lot of businesses or startups are tackling and people in their network really have. Talk to your network. It could be a boring problem. It can be something very unique to a specific customer, but not a lot of like tech startups are tackling. I think those are some of the problems that are not being solved. And if you have an advantage within that specific space, like if you know it better, if you've studied it or your previous work experience exposed you to that specific type of pain points, leverage that. That's really helpful because at the end of the day, if you want to build a successful startup, in my opinion, you need to be the best in the world almost in that specific space. And you really need to go deep. And wherever you have that advantage, I would lean on that. I would stay away from consumer space. If you're not really good at it, you should do it only if you're really, really good at that specific set of problems and go to market. Otherwise, whatever you're good at and you really know and your customers have a specific problem in, I would tackle that.
So when you say not to go for consumer, are you implying that you should emphasize focusing on B2B versus B2C?
I think you should go for B2C if you're really, really good at what you do. That's a very specific skill set that you should absolutely tackle. If you know how to build that GTM motion, you've done it before and you can build that machine. But for your first startup, onboarding a customer will be easier if you do B2B. But I'll never say never. In my experience, as a first-time founder, your chance of being successful will go up if you are solving a very boring problem for a business.
After that first client, how did you end up getting the next few?
Yeah, so that was more trial and error. You can follow a few steps. Number one is if your first customer is happy, they have people in their network who have similar problems. So you can go from 1 to 5 to 10, right? That's one way to do. Another way is if they have investors in their network, and if you're fundraising, let's say, if you're solving that pain point for that customer, most likely other companies in that network will have similar problems. So if you're talking to, let's say, investors, you can ask the investors, hey, we can solve this. You don't have to listen to me. Your portfolio companies probably have these problems. Why don't we onboard one of your portfolio companies and they can tell you what we can do for them? So that's a win-win, right? For everyone. VC is happy because their portfolio company has their problem solved. You gain a customer and the company gets their problem solved. If your product is scalable, you can also try partnerships. For example, for us, like we can partner with CPA firms, service firms, right? We can automate a lot of those flows that they do by hand. If they're serving 3,000 customers, they can serve 6,000 with the automation, double that, right? What was holding them back previously was the manual work. If we remove that, it's a win for them. They can double their customer base. We get a percentage of the revenue share, and then the customers are happier. So that you can try multiple channels that way.
So when it comes to partnerships, is that a challenge to approach them? Do you think it's a very different approach?
It is different. If you know your space and if your product is developed enough, it can absolutely work. There are a lot of really big companies that scale the GTM that way, especially in our space. So I would say it depends on the company. If you know what you're building, like for us, because my second time, I know the space, I know what needs to be built. So I can tailor it for those needs. If it's your first company, maybe it will come a little later, but you should always have that in your mind as you're building your product. As you're serving your customers, you should always think about scale, because as you're onboarding more customers in your head, you should always think, oh, let's say I have 50 customers. If I go to this partner, I could get 500. If I got 500 right now with this product, would it scale? If no, okay, what do I have to keep in mind on my roadmap so that if I went there, I could actually sign that deal and accelerate my growth? It's always keeping that in the back of your head, where being open to those opportunities and updating your roadmap based on those factors that you're seeing.
What do you think does not work consistently when it comes to getting more clients?
I think being very stubborn is very dangerous. You should always have a hypothesis. As a founder, you're almost like a scientist, right? So like you have a hypothesis, you need to have an opinion, but you should never be too committed to that opinion. If it's not working, being able to pivot and try different things is very, very difficult, but very important. If you get stuck on a specific idea, an approach, and it doesn't work, like you got to let it go. If you don't, that could kill the company. So focus on the problem, have an opinion on a solution or a set of solutions, test them, but maybe it's something else. You will never know if you don't try it out, but be willing to let it go if it's not working and try something else. Always.
People can be very attached to their passion and ideas, and it can be very hard to let go. How do you recommend letting go so they can move on?
What matters for me is, are my customers happy? Am I serving them, solving their problems? And is my team motivated and working on things that matter? If what I think and what I'm passionate about doesn't serve that, I let it go, because it's all about focus. And my focus is my customer and my team. So unless those two pieces are not moving forward, I let it go. That's very hard to do. You got to let go of your ego. But once you get used to it, I think it gets easier. When you see results, like when you get more customers, your revenue goes up, you see the progress in your product, it makes it easier, because maybe I'm not as passionate about this specific problem or motion, but when you see results, like people like to succeed, right? So when you see success, your people are happy, customers are happy, you're growing as a business, then you get more satisfied as a founder as well. The results will drive you to do more of that. Just being results oriented is really helpful.
Taking a step back, walk me through what you did on day one when you started, and what did that look like?
Day one was all about co-founders. This journey is very, very lonely and difficult. And I respect solo founders a lot, but I couldn't do it. I was looking for what type of co-founder do I want and how can I find them? So for me, day one was looking for people who be passionate about building product in the space. So that's what I focused on. You need luck for that as well. It's all about your network, who you're meeting. There's no formula there. I got very lucky. I found two amazing co-founders, and then we started tackling the problem. And our advantage was knowing the space, knowing how to build within that space. I was able to avoid a lot of the pitfalls. So we were able to move very quickly. But yeah, co-founders is number one, always. I've known them for 20 years. And my third co-founder, they previously started a company together and been close for a few years. So we got together. Also, all co-founders should get together in person. They need to get to know each other, shake hands, understand how they operate. And I think that makes it much easier to handle the difficulties, especially at the early stages. Things can be pretty difficult, right? My co-founders are very experienced. One of them is a very senior technical leader. And then my third co-founder, he already bootstrapped a pretty big digital marketing company. So we're all experienced founders, right? Experience matters. It's not necessariness, but it can have advantages and disadvantages. If you're fresh, you probably have more energy, but being experienced also has its advantages, and you know what to look out for. You know what your weaknesses are. Everybody can complement each other better. So that's how we got together.
So did you need any money to start, or could anyone do this from zero?
We bootstrapped a bit. I wouldn't say anyone can do it from zero. It depends on where are you located, what problem are you solving. Some problems will be more capital intensive. Like if you're trying to do hardware, it's not going to happen, right? Also, how you set up your product development process and what you're building, how you're building, that will matter. Uh, For us, we were able to cut costs a lot because of our geographical distribution, and we knew what to build. We didn't have to experiment in the beginning. But if you are, it's a good idea to keep your headcount low, just the founders, get some customers, test it out, be able to pivot really quickly. But for us, we were able to skip a lot of those steps because we knew what to avoid and we knew the space.
Did you have any marketing plans in place at the beginning?
It depends on your space. Marketing, even if you have a plan, if it's very costly, you have to be careful. The keywords you have to buy are very expensive. You're just going to burn out. You're going to run out of money. So there's no formula in it. You can be smart about it. For example, the company name we picked was shorter and easier for SEO. That was tactical. But beyond a certain point, it's got to be intelligent. You can think about it this way. At the end of the day, what's your goal? Your goal is to get to a certain sales level, let's say profitable or a million or 10 million, 100 million revenue, whatever it is. You have certain avenues. Marketing is one of them. You have multiple GTM motion options. What is the most efficient to test which one has the best ROI at that specific stage? And then you test that. If something else works better before you raise, you can do that. If marketing works the best within a specific motion, you do that. But it's all about outcome-based evaluation of different metrics and different GTM motions, and then you can focus on whatever works best.
At what point did you feel this was becoming a real business to go all in? And
Our tool is very comprehensive. So when I could connect the data of a business and I could do end-to-end all the tasks and I could run it myself, that's why I knew, oh, this is an amazing product. Like this actually is huge because you remove all the complexity in it. You don't need anything else. You can use this specific product. That's a huge signal because this space is so complicated and there are so many edge cases that you really have to care about it.
do you use AI in your day to day? And if so, which tools do you use and how do you use them?
For us, we use all the tools. So I'll use Claude, I'll use OpenAI tools, etc., Codex, etc. But instead of focusing on AI, I think startups should focus on a problem. Like, this is the problem I'm solving. How can I address these issues? And then using the best tools to address those. For example, product categorization in sales tax is a huge issue. There are 41,000 zip codes in the US. You have your state rates, county rates, city rates, special rates. A combination of those per zip code will define your tax rate that you have to collect and pay in each jurisdiction. Plus, you have a product categorization, right? Based on the product category that you're selling in, you need to do that in real time. And then you have to tax each transaction based on the categories. It becomes unbelievably complex. For example, you might have 10,000 products that you have to categorize every single week. How do you do that? If you do that by hand, that's almost impossible. You're going to make mistakes. It's going to take hours. That's where AI is very useful. Knowing where the tools that are the most advanced can help the specific pain point that you're solving and applying that there. That's how you can differentiate yourself. But I think you should always focus on the pain point instead of the tool.
If you had to start over from zero today, what would you do in the first 7 days, knowing what you know now?
What I would do is get a customer in any space, get one customer and tell them, look, what's your biggest problem? I'm going to solve this for you. I'm going to give you the best deal that you can find. In my opinion, you should charge them at least $1,000. So any problem that a customer might have, if they are willing to pay $1,000, I would focus on. I'm saying $1,000 not because of the money itself, but because of the magnitude of the problem. Meaning, in my opinion, if a customer is not willing to pay $1,000 to solve a specific problem, it might be a problem, but it might not be a big enough problem to build a startup in. So if you're building a startup, you want to scale quick. And if it's not a big enough problem for a customer where they're willing to pay a specific number, it might make sense to focus on something else that they might be willing to pay more for. So it's not the dollar amount, but it's the importance of that specific problem for their business.
You think it takes practice to ask for that amount? It's a large sum for someone that's never done this before.
And by the way, it doesn't have to be 1,000. If they say, I can't pay 1,000, but I'll pay 500 or 700. Okay, start with 1,000 and maybe they'll lower it. It definitely takes practice. Not easy. And a lot of founders, they might be very technical. They might be very intelligent. They're engineers, let's say, but sales is a different motion. But it's a really good habit to develop where you're not asking money for the sake of money. You're trying to figure out which problem matters for your customer and you're going to dedicate your life to it. So might as well get that right. And you'll put the money in your business. You're not going to pocket it, but you want to solve the correct problem, like big problem for your customer. And if you think about it that way, it becomes easier to ask for that specific amount because you're not asking the amount for yourself. You're trying to figure out, okay, what is a big problem for my customer? Because most people are nice. If you go to a person and if you tell them, hey, I'm building this app most of your friends or people in your network will be very nice. Like, oh, yeah, that's a great idea, blah, blah, blah. That's not very useful, right? Unless they're willing to pay for it, you can spend years of your life working on that and you won't get anything out of it. Whereas if you ask for the money up front, if they give it to you, they really care. They'll ask you, hey, where's my output? You told me this was going to come. I paid you money. What's going on? You want that. That's good because then you're solving a real problem.
Some people believe a problem is strong, but the market doesn't align with that. Or they do correctly identify a problem, but it's not strong enough. What advice would you give to make sure you do your due diligence to identify that problem? It's the correct problem, it's a strong enough problem, and to make sure that it's validated.
I can only speak to my experience. I think there are two ways you can go about it. If the market is small, but if it's growing at a very high rate and you're very passionate about it, you're catching that wave early. That's one way to do it. But the other way to tackle that is if it's a huge problem, like it's a massive market, there might be a lot of players, but you want to gain an insight in that or what's your wedge in that problem that will allow customers to work with you versus anybody else. So I think those are the two ways to grow quickly. I would avoid small markets that are not growing. If you want to build a startup, you can build really good businesses there. There'll be less competition, but in that case, you want to get profitable immediately because you're not going to be VC backable. You're just going to get the profitability and maybe you run a solo business or a lifestyle business. Nothing wrong with that. That's great. But knowing where you're going, if you're trying to raise VC money, you can't tackle small markets unless they're growing really fast.
Any final thoughts that you want to leave for people still trying to get their first client?
Talk to people who have businesses or who you trust, who you like, who you respect, and ask them, hey, what are some of the problems that are keeping you up at night that you're wasting a lot of time on? And make a list and then see how do I fit to this problem, this problem. So it's almost like a founder market fit. What are the biggest problems with my customers, potential customers? Which ones do I like and respect most? And where can I fit in best? And then have a ranking algorithm between those columns. And then based on that, tackle those and then have a list and tackle them one by one and see which one hits. I would do first customer I get in my top priorities. Okay, let's tackle this idea. If it works, that's my startup. If it doesn't, go to the next idea. Go to the next idea. Get a customer though. Get a customer who pays you $1,000 or as close to $1,000 as possible.
Where can people find you in Reven AI?
Reven.co is our website. My email is barkin@reven.co. I check my email and our website is a sign up as well. So anybody has any questions or want to use our product, we'd love to serve your listeners and talk about startups in general. And I love founders. I love learning from them, asking for advice as well. Just great to be connected to founders.
Links to Reven AI are in the description below. Barkin, what a great conversation. Thank you so much for your time.